think 7,000 is a good cap, and then the city council can always entertain increasing that at a later time.
Okay. Councilman Arnold, are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Councilman Allen? Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah. Again, Chris Stanko for the record. So I think it's gonna run over 7,000. The engagement of course,
Is it gonna run over 7,000 this fiscal year?
when does this fiscal year end?
June 30th?
I don't know. That depends. Once I get involved, and there's a lot of complex issues with respect to these potential engagements and everything else. There's additionally not just us, who's state law council, potentially, there's also federal railroad council.
So the motion is that, at that time that we reach that limit, that we can come back and revisit that.
Right. I'm not sure I'm gonna commit to doing that if that's the case. As far the engagement letter that I provided, that's on the agenda, is with our costs and fees with respect to our law firm, but it doesn't include a cap. Now,
This isn't a cap per se, but we only have so much in the budget, and we would have to have a more lengthy conversation about where that money would come from, which we can't have tonight.
Okay.
We'd like to sign the thing and move forward, but we want to be able to come back and revisit where we're going with this.
That's fine. In that case, then, I think that we should try to have that lengthy conversation. I don't want to commit to the joint representation at that time if it's going to be capped like that, not knowing where we're going to go with respect to the funds. If we get into this project, we hit that cap and where we are. So our law firm is going to need some clarity as well from this potential client before I can commit to engagement. Obviously, I think we've done a great job for the city with respect to other things we've done, but
the council, Chris, just has a problem writing an open-ended check when there isn't a plan there either.
well, it's so we're clear. It's not an open-ended check. The council can always tell us to hold off, but in terms of and say like we don't authorize any more work, regardless. The client can also always say that. Can always, like, I would never just keep going when we say, look, we don't have any more money. Please stop. But I don't want to commit our law firm to something, not knowing if the other client potentially has the funds for this project. And so I think we should have that lengthier conversation before I would say our law firm, my partners included, myself, commit to the joint engagement.
Well, we don't have another meeting until December 8th. Is there a problem waiting until then?
I know that the Ellis Power wants to get moving on it, but I don't have a problem waiting until then.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
We have a meeting, with the railroad 45G tax credit. We received word we're going to get a substantial amount of help on this expense. I think the word cap is probably the wrong terminology to use. We got the agreement, he's got his rates in there, which is good. I think we should just do with the agreement without the wording of a cap. Because our treasurer, she can augment, she knows that as well as the rest of us, that fast through an open meeting. I think the terminology needs to be changed. The word cap, the 7,000 is not enough, but I think we're going to be flush with information we received tonight.
And if I can also add, if we are in the middle of something, we're not going to change horses in the middle of the stream, I'm pretty sure. So, you can't know and we can't know, but if there's something that comes up and we've got to deal with it, we've got to deal with it. And I want to say once again, our treasurer will take care of that. So, you have to have some good faith also.
Treasurer Trask, is there anything you wanted to add about the tax credit? Is that a viable option? Okay.
Yes, that is. It will be going out tomorrow to the rest of the council, the information that I know of. There's also, you have to remember, I do have a contingency fund in there, but an open checkbook, I'm not comfortable with.
If I follow up on the treasurer's comment on that, again, she has to work it out, the tax credit, the city's getting her portion of it, but the road's going to get a substantial amount of money. That would be for this first distribution of the tax credit. That could be the number the cap off on. I mean, my opinion is on this, which is up to the council, make the final decision, is that tax credit, legal fees only for railroad issues.
Well, and there's a number of these agreements that we've entered into in the last few months.
That have all had limits on,
Oh, they all had limits?
yeah, I believe there was a $25,000 limit and a $14,000 limit.
I mean, it'd probably be healthy to have a conversation within the next couple of months where we just sit down and review those agreements and how much has been spent, so the council knows,
Mhm.
and those things just don't kind of get away from them. So that it's not an open-ended checkbook.
And Chris, the only reason this has been brought up is because our legal budget is coming to its end. But like they had mentioned, there are funds that will be coming into that potentially and pretty soon, is what I see. So that was really the only reason why we discussed putting a potential limit on that. Not necessarily a cap, but a point wherein we can all come back and discuss where these funds are going to come from.
Okay, so you understand from me and my law firm's perspective, first, a couple things, just to be, somewhat blunt here. I don't need this project. Got a lot of great work that pays me more. Obviously have a big connection to this community, and that's why I've gotten involved. So I think we're really efficient. We don't churn whatsoever. And of course, there is obviously a history with our law firm and the city and the foundation. Hence why that 130 is now available. But I don't want to get into a position where I have two clients and one is saying they're no longer going to pay because of whatever constraints, and we're kind of sitting there, and maybe now we have a potential conflict, right? And so,
Well, Chris, I fail to see the difference though, whether we just review it at $7,000 or, like you said, we can quit any time. I guess I'm not understanding the
But
difference.
they say you quit any time, then we're still the Foundations Council. I have to then determine what to do with the foundation with respect to the same matter that had been ongoing. And so, I mean, I just, we've had an engagement before.
Right.
There was no, I guess, cap about what it was. Of course, the
Well, like
city
Councilman
could.
always said, I think cap is the wrong term.
Right.
7,000 was just the point where we would review whether that was, money was gonna be coming from the tax credit or we would have to augment from somewhere else.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily a cap, but that is the point that we would need to internally review where the money was gonna come from first.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It's just a question of, like you saw in the engagement letter, I'm giving a pretty big discount off my regular rate, that I have more work than I can do at this time. So the question is, how much sort of, difficult of an engagement is this going to be potentially?
I
The last
don't think this is
engagement
the-
worked
this
great
is-
together, it was obviously very successful. But if that's, before we commit, and it's very, it's a serious commitment, attorney-client relationship is a serious commitment, it's a serious relationship. I don't want, 3 months to go by and say, well, yeah, but we're gonna go in a different route. And so maybe there should be some more in-depth conversations, potentially with the foundation first,
Chris,
before there's a joint engagement.
the motion was to sign the engagement letter as it is. The motion about reviewing this at 7,000 was an internal thing that we would need to do, not with you guys.
Sure, but it raises the issue for me about, then the engagement started, the city is once again our law firm's client, and the question then becomes, well, what's gonna happen at that time, and we're already midstream on this project.
The question of what happens at that time is the city figures out where else we need to augment from to continue paying you.
Okay, or potentially drops off,
That was what you said, that we could
Right.
let you.
I don't
pay.
think the city
That's
has
not
any
what you
interest
said.
in backing out, right? That there's an issue with the line that the city and the foundation both have an interest in seeing through to get these agreements in place. And so
Right.
I don't think the city has any interest in backing out once we lose the money, or we're out of money, we'll just augment or find it from elsewhere. That's typically the issue.
That's just an internal budget issue that we would be dealing with.
but
I'm sorry. And I apologize if that's, this to me is what he's trying to say is, what I'm trying to do is to make them understand how we have to manage our money. It
understood.
has nothing to do contract itself. I just need to make sure that we follow the procedures on how we're gonna figure out if it hits a certain point or we go over the budget, how I'm gonna have to deal with putting it back into the budget to cover it.
Sure.
So it's nothing against what you guys have done. You guys have done an amazing job for us from what I can see. So I apologize if that's the way it came across. I'm just trying to make sure that the finances are done correctly, because I'm the one that has to deal with the auditors when that point comes.
Certainly,
Okay.
certainly. So, okay. If it was any other client, I would say let's hold off and let's have another meeting, but because it's the city of Ely, and it's very, very important to me, and it's a great client, these are, you know, important issues that, need to be resolved, I'm happy moving forward based on all that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'd just like to just add, Mr. Mayor, is, so the people that don't know, the city owns the rail line. That's the important part of it, so we're not gonna bail. We work together good, you communicate, and it comes out good, so. And a few things were said out of context, that's all I have to say, that, you know, this rail line is the heart of tourism to this city.
Any other discussion?
Are we reviewing the cap part or?
We're modifying the language from cap to point of review for internal budget issues, just so that we're clear on that.
And Mr. Mayor, Chris Danko again, I wrote the engagement letter to Councilman Williams Harper, based on past protocol since you've been the mayor. You always usually stepped off. I'm fine with, if you want to sign it as well, whatever you
Well,
think.
and thank you for pointing that out. I do need to disclose that I am an employee, a part-time employee of the foundation. This agreement does not personally affect my employment or my bank account, and I don't vote on it, so I will not be withdrawing on this for that reason. Yeah, so it's exactly that. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried and so ordered. It's 4-0. Councilman Carson had to leave for the evening. Item 5, council member, city attorney Cahoon, discussion for possible action. Approval of the common interest and joint representation agreement between the city of Ely, Nevada, the city of Ely, Nevada, and the Nevada Northern Railway Foundation, and Great Basin and Northern Railroad, Inc. for legal services provided by Mop and Cox and LaRoy and Thompson Hine LLP regarding matters involving the northern line of the Nevada Northern Railway. Is there any preface you'd like to make on this?
Are there any questions? I think it speaks for itself. Any questions for me?
I'll entertain a motion on that.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Motion from Councilman Howard, do I have a second? Second from Councilman Trask. Any further discussion or questions? I'll make the same disclosure as I did in item 4. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? 4-0. We will return to our regularly scheduled program. Thanks for your help. Item 5, City Department reports. Fire Chief, who is not here tonight. He has his report. Police Chief, I don't believe is here tonight either. Municipal Court Judge, who's here in person. City Attorney.
Nothing to report.
City Clerk.
So at the last meeting, Councilman Allred asked about potential surplus vehicle sale, and I did discuss that with Public Works Supervisor Craig Rapp. He has discussed that with the leads, and in December they'll be putting that list together, and then we'll get the legal published in the paper and proceed through that process.
Thank you.
That's in the works.
All right, thank you very much, both of you.
City Treasurer. City Public Works Supervisor, who is not here now. City Water Operator, you have their report. City Engineer.
Congratulations, you guys, and welcome. As I've always told everybody here, I'm here to help you guys implement your guys' policy, not to make a policy or direct the policy. So if you guys ever have any questions, please feel free to come and visit me. I'm always open and available and answer any questions that I can give you guys. But other than that, I won't bother you too much. I had a meeting today on the Alma Street project, and so things are still proceeding forward. One of the questions that was discussed in there was asked how this new governor would have an impact on this project, and their feeling was that it would not have an impact. That they've got their things in place, and they feel comfortable with this and will continue to move forward. One of the things that I do gotta get together, I gotta get some information,